I managed to get the bowl back on, and I was able to hold the float up with my fingertip and keep the needle in there. And at the very last second, pulled my finger up, pushed it up, and I don't believe that the needle fell out. So now I'm going to reattach my fuel line and test again to see if the float's holding now. I adjusted the float by bending the tabs a little bit. While I'm working on that, I've got my jumper cables hooked up to the truck batteries and draining off some power from the truck to try and put a little bit of a residual charge in this battery, and then I'm going to leave it hooked up to the jumpers when I try and start it. Well, I can see I'm going to have to pull that carburetor. Damn it. Well, I tilted my can down here so that the fuel flow will shut off. And now that I know the bowl is filled to the top, I should be able to get it to start just off the bowl and run momentarily. Alright, one last thing I did before I decided to try and start it is I tightened the muffler clamp, the exhaust pipe clamp. Might as well use this little muffler that's on here, and no need to be overly loud. Alright, still not sure how this throttle is going to work, so I'm going to leave it at about this position here. And I'm going to turn my choke on. Now let's see if we've got enough juice to get this thing to crank. Nope. I'm going to have to come back with a full battery charge, and as long as I'm coming back, I might as well take this carburetor home and tear it down on the bench. Alright, I got the 350 Utilities carburetor back here on the workbench. I'm going to take it apart and clean it. So I'm going to start by removing the bolts here that hold the bowl on. But what I'm going to do is, before I take it off, I'm going to invert the carburetor and take the bowl off. That way I'll be able to verify if my needle was still in its proper position. Alright, so I carefully took the bowl off, and as I lift up on the bowl, I can see the needle still in its position, so that's not the reason why it's not seating. Now I'm going to pull a little hinge pin here. Now I'm going to remove the needle and take a look at the seat. When I look down there under magnification, I can see some varnish on the seat, and that might be my problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this seat so that I can soak it, the carburetor cleaner, disconnected from the rest of the carburetor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this adjustment screw right here, but before I do that, I want to remove it so that I can clear this passage. But before I do that, I want to turn it in slowly until it lightly seats, and I'm going to count how many turns that takes so that I'll have a good initial starting point when I put it back in. Alright, looks like just shy of 2 full turns. So I'm going to call it 1 3/4 turns. And that'll be my initial starting point, and then I'll adjust it once the engine's running. Now I'm removing this little screw right here because this appears to be a plug that's just there so that you can open up and clean this passage, because this passage clearly runs up here to where this screw adjustment was removed, which is probably air fuel mixture for low speed. And then it runs, looks like it runs down here where it must pick up fuel from the bowl through one of these ports maybe. But I might as well just take that out because it's coming out easy enough. Yeah, and again, that's just a plug, but by removing that plug, that allows you to get in there to clean that. Now this venturi right here, on other carburetors that I've had apart similar to this assembly comes out and it practically falls right out easily. It's definitely a separate piece, obviously, but I can't get it out. I tried tapping it out from the other side lightly, and it didn't want to come out, and I don't want to force it. It seems to be pressed in there and stuck in there really well. So I'm going to leave that in place, but ideally I would have liked to have removed this so that I could make sure that all of the cleaning fluid from the soaking process gets in there behind it. Alright, now I'm going to turn my attention to the bottom half of the carburetor. Basically, there's 3 things I want to remove here. The main jet, which is right here, this brass piece. This little tiny jet right here. I can get it out without damaging it. And this adjustment screw right here. which is a needle adjustment right there. So I'm going to start with this adjustment screw. Same procedure as before. I'm going to turn it until it lightly seats and then back it out and count the turns. Wow, that screw turned in 5 full turns. That seems odd to me, but I'll have to check and see if I can find in the manual if it gives me any information on carburetor adjustment. But 5 full turns before it's seated. So now I'm going to take that screw out. And there we go. It actually doesn't look bad at all. It's not corroded or pitted. And it's got a little bit of gum on it from stale fuel, but nothing the carburetor cleaner won't take care of. So now I'm going to take out the part that actually screwed into. Alright, there's the main jet assembly, and that's also pretty clear. Well, this one's being a little stubborn. It has a screwdriver slot in the end, but the soft brass is just starting to bend. Let's see if I can grab it with some pliers and try and turn it gently. If not, I'm not going to force the issue. Yeah, that did it. A little twist with the pliers and it loosened up enough so I could get it with the screwdriver. That's a little blocked, but not bad. But that'll also go in for the soak. Now I'm going to put it all in the carburetor cleaner bath and let it soak. Okay, here's what the bowl looks like after I soaked it overnight. The carb cleaner does a really good job of removing any varnish, but it also removes all the paint, old paint, so you can see there's a little bit left there. But the paint just kind of like is peeled off and bubbled up. So what I do is I run this under hot water and use a scrub brush to get as much of the paint off as possible so that I get a nice clean surface. Now, because the carburetor is wet, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it in my toaster oven and heat it up a couple hundred degrees and let it toast a little bit and drive all the moisture out of it so that I don't get corrosion issues. So here's the top half of the carburetor coming out of the bath before I've rinsed it, and you can see all of the paint that's still on there that's just kind of like bubbled up and coming right off, and a quick scrub with hot water and that'll all come off. Now I didn't have room in here for the little tray that comes with the carb cleaner and all the little parts, so I'm going to now that I have the carburetor body out, I'm going to soak these parts. Okay, got all the small parts out of the carb cleaner and I've cleaned them off, and now what I've done is I've taken my carb cleaner with the straw on it and I've made sure that all of my ports and openings here and passages are clear on the top and bottom parts of the carburetor. So it's basically these large ports here, which would be pretty hard to clog, but I ran those anyways just to make sure. And on here you've got this port here, and then this tiny little brass port right here, that's actually clear. I screw it into that, it actually comes up through where the main jet screws in. And then down there where that little brass fitting is there, that also runs to the main jet. So this screw adjustment down here must be the main, and the one at the top here, which I also scored it through, that one must be the idle or low speed. This really tiny one right here, I made sure this is open, sprayed cleaner through that. I got a nice clean spray coming out of it, so I know that that's open. So I'm going to install that. That goes back in this little opening right here. Now the main jet nozzle, of course, that goes in right down here. Now this little brass reducer screws in here. And of course, once I get that in and seated, then I can put in this adjusting screw. Now there appears to be some kind of a rubber washer or O-ring in there, and I couldn't get it out, and hopefully it's not going to leak. But what I discovered is as I tighten this down, it kind of squishes it down and makes the hole in the middle small enough that you can't get the screw through. So I pushed the screw in first and then tightened it down. Well, that just really made a mess of whatever that seal is, because now it started to stick out into the bowl, which I don't want that. So I took it out and looked at it, and I saw this look almost like a sleeve in there, and I touched it and it just disintegrated. So
I'm not even sure what the heck that was made out of. I just picked at the stuff and knocked a bunch of it out, and I don't know what that is. It's almost like the consistency of graphite. There's some more big chunks of that stuff, and I noticed that it actually, when I pushed the needle in, it had taken some of it with it and pushed it into the jet that I just cleaned inside there, or the port I just cleaned. So I just blew that back out by forcing carb cleaner through here. I got that cleaned back out. But I don't like that at all. I don't know what that stuff is. I'm wondering whether or not that was some kind of a sins of the farmer type of field fix for a leak. I'm going to see if I can't find a parts diagram for this carburetor and see what's supposed to be there for a seal. Well, I did a little bit of research, and what I found out is that this is a packing material that's in there. This is broken down from age, and what basically happens is that seals around this needle adjustment, and as you tighten this, what they call a packing nut, as you tighten this, it causes that to squeeze down around this shaft of this needle jet and adjustment, and that's what keeps fuel from leaking out. So if that's in bad shape, you're going to get a fuel leak here. So I'm going to have to replace that. I also found out that several people had complained about that they had ordered kits to rebuild this carburetor from various sources, and one guy said, he tried 2 different sources, Napa and another source, and when the kit came in, it came in with some of the basic parts, and actually one of the kits had just about everything that he needed, except they both did not have the packing. And then he gave a link to a company, can't remember the name of it, but they showed that they have a kit that specifically has the packing. Now, it's about $30 for that kit. My carburetor seems to be in pretty good shape as far as the ports and everything being clear and not being too badly corroded. So I'm thinking, just for my purposes now, remember that, at this point we just want to see if we can get the motor running and see if we can test the other systems on the tractor. So what I want to do just for now is I want to get this together just the way it is, but I do need to come up with something to take care of this packing. So the first thing I need to do is I need to dig out what's left of this old packing material from inside here, and then I'm going to go in search of maybe hopefully some fat O-rings or some sort of rubber washers that I'll be able to stuff in there and kind of make up a packing. Well, it took quite a bit of scraping, but you see all the chunks of stuff that I got out, and I finally feel that I've got it cleaned out pretty well. So that packing probably is about that long when it's new and complete, and would be almost like a sleeve shaped thing that would go down in there, and then as the nut would be tightened in, it would kind of squash it down and cause it to grip tighter around this. But I think we might be able to find something else that might work.